G'day, my name's Canon, and welcome back to NerdCulture Australia. I watched Man of Steel, the sixth Superman movie that I've had to watch before I went and saw Superman 2025, with Henry Cavill playing the titular character. I really like this film. It's a good Superman film. And as far as one and dones, really the only other film that I'd have to compare it to would be Brandon Routh's outing as Superman in Superman Returns. So, by comparison, it's a pretty good film. Just like Brandon Routh, but in a different way, a different fashion, right? Based upon its own merits, it is a solid film. So, let's jump into it. The story, as you could expect, is a Superman story. It's the second outing of Superman versus General Zod. Obviously, played by different actors, because I'll have to do some research, but I think the other Zod is either A, too old, or no longer with us. So they've picked somebody else to play it. But the story, as it goes, follows Henry Cavill's Superman as he grows. Like, you've got the standard Krypton exploding, the spaceship falling to Earth, being picked up by the Kents. They've done it a little bit differently, so rather than a straight linear progression from essentially spaceship to suit, it actually it does flashbacks, right? So as Clark Kent, or he's known by other names and variations, as he wends his way through the world trying to figure out who he is and how he belongs. You see various parts of him growing up and some of the stuff that he's had to deal with. You see the passing away of Jonathan Kent, which I think it's not comic book accurate. Like, I keep saying that I don't read the comics, but I'm fairly certain that one I have read was the death of Jonathan Kent, and I'm fairly certain it was a heart attack, not a hurricane. But as he goes through, he obviously does various acts of heroism, or just generally trying to figure out what kind of a person he wants to be. So there's, flashback to him with a truck being like a logging truck. After an altercation with the driver, he puts it on stilts, so to speak. There is a rescue operation for a oil rig that is on fire, and that's one of the coolest scenes ever, was opening the door, Cavill wreathed in fire, and just going, basically, well, I'm here, the door is open, come on, let's get you out, and then holding the tower up as the helicopter falls away. Right, and then we cut to modern day, where he catches wind, essentially, of people finding something in the is it the Arctic or the Antarctic? I don't know, somewhere with ice. He hitches a ride. We follow Lois Lane, as she basically goes to investigate this weird thing in the ice. He reactivates it. Lois Lane is attacked. He cauterizes the wound with his heat vision, so obviously he's clearly done some exploring of his powers while he's been, journeying on his journey of self-discovery and what he can do. He then meets up with his dad, who is played by Russell Crowe, which is honestly just a really good casting. I did forget to mention that we do actually get to see kind of the pre-events to the fall of Krypton, with Russell Crowe and the actor playing General Zod going at it like hammer and tongs before Krypton explodes, obviously. So this was a nice continuation of part of that storyline. Right? So anyway, Cavill flies off in what we then know is a scout ship for what we will eventually know as the Kryptonian Empire, Space Empire. And I think from there, we get into general superheroics, right? So Lois decides to do some digging. Eventually is stopped by Cavill himself at the grave of Jonathan Kent and goes, look, please stop digging. I don't really want to be shown to the world just yet, not because I'm not ready, but because I don't think humanity is ready. Anyway, General Zod is called to Earth by the activation of the scout ship. It basically puts out a message going, hey, I know you've got one of my people down there, please return him. And then we get to see Cavill in the suit. And dang, Superman is, Superman arrives. He hands himself over to Earth's military, who then hands him over to Zod. He discovers that the environment of Krypton is detrimental to his well-being, palming off basically a Kryptonian USB to upload a simulation of his father's consciousness to Zod's ship, which then helps him effect his escape. He returns to Earth. The Kryptonians drop something called a world engine onto Earth, essentially threatening everything that Superman knows and loves. Basically, the world engine's essentially just going to turn Earth into Krypton. So they end up destroying the world engine with Superman's baby spaceship, and then Superman and Zod go at it. There are some other fights that I've skipped over, just for the purpose of time of this video. Also, my wife is listening in, so I'm incredibly nervous doing this with a live audience. But the end result is that Superman wins, saves the day, and then he gets to do the fly. As, the camera pans out, you see Earth, you see Superman fly over the Earth, and then the movie ends. So, the briefest of story overviews. We'll get into things that probably matter a little bit more. I like all the casting for this film. Henry Cavill plays a really good Superman. I have forgotten everybody else's names, but the Lois Lane casting worked. I believe we saw Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White. That was pretty cool too. I don't really think we got to see enough of the guy that played Jonathan Kent, but the little bit that we did see of him throughout the story, I think, kind of really nailed home strong father figure vibes, as it were. I like the casting for Zod. The other two didn't really say much. The other two Kryptonians didn't say much. There was a little bit of, there was a continuity error, because I was, at least from Christopher Reeve's Superman, I was given to understand that Zod and his two subordinates were the only Kryptonians still alive after the fall of Krypton. But when they show up in Man of Steel, they have, a fully crewed spaceship. And the way that, they say their story of, roaming through the galaxy trying to find survivors and all that, they weren't successful, and yet there they all are. So either they are, robots, or they are Kryptonians. It's never really fully explained, but the actors did a really good job for that. Let's talk about the suit. I make no allusions to the fact that Brandon Routh's suit is my favorite suit. They did away with the underwear in this one. The red pants on the outside. And it's just, the suit is a little bit darker overall. Now, color-wise, it's fine. It's a red S on a blue background, but at the same time, the full bodysuit just didn't do it for me. You've got to have that classic red underwear on the outside for it to really be a proper Superman costume. Hence why I like Brandon Routh's better. The music was awesome. I don't understand comic book films' fascination and obsession with using music, music being the wrong one, radio tracks, right? Ragnarok uses Led Zeppelin for their epic fight scene with Thor coming down on the bridge with lightning, right? Like, a lot of superhero films use some form of rock band music to portray epic scenes and just generally announce that things are happening within the film. Man of Steel takes a different approach, which I like a lot better, which is thematic orchestral pieces, which I like a lot more, because while rock band music might suit the vibe of the character from a personal point of view, orchestral music displays a little bit more creativity. Again, personal opinion, but I really like the music in this one. Right, just a quick look at my notes, and I need to talk about scenery. So the cinematography was great. Obviously, snow was snow. The fields of Kansas were the fields of Kansas. As well as the idea of wholesale destruction at the... not the behest is the wrong word, but it may portray the message I'm trying to get across. Wholesale destruction, the behest of metahuman shenanigans, is always a topic for thought and discussion. At the same time, given, I guess you could say, the power levels of the characters involved, some destruction is not necessary, but expected. So Zod and Superman beating the crap out of each other is definitely going to bring down buildings. Absolutely. Right? And the use of Kryptonian technology like the World Engine is also going to cause wholesale destruction, both to a building as well as the people within. Right? These things they happen in a snap instant. There's not really any call to do anything by way of evacuation. People do what they can, and, for those of us watching the story, you can kind of assume that at the end of the fight, barring Superman flying backwards around the world to reset time, there's going to be a really significant recovery period after such events. But outside of that, I thought the cinematography was pretty well done. It felt lived in, it felt real, Superman belonged. I have no complaints. But as a ending to this video, I really like Man of Steel. As far as Superman movies go, it is a Superman movie. There's not really much more than that you could want. Superman flies, he's really strong, he has laser vision. I can't remember if he uses his breath for anything, because from what I can remember, that's a pretty core component of what he uses in other films and from the very few comic books that I've read. But I really like the film. It is, outside of some things, I would say a very complete Superman film. There can be discussions on what happens to Zod at the end of their fight. I'm not going to say that the right choice was made, only that unmovable force meets immovable object, Zod being what he was, a manufactured to-order super warrior, basically. Bred to follow and give orders for a singular purpose with no remit outside a very narrow set of parameters. Meant that Superman's final decision for Zod at the end, while not warranted, was understandable. And I think that's where we'll leave it. If you like what you saw, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. which will be Superman 2025.